Hey gang, Fraser here. I have returned from Essen Spiel 2017. I had a fantastic time as always. It was great to see all of those people that I only get to see once a year when I go over there to Germany. And of course, to play all of those incredible games. There were hundreds of new releases. I got to play many of them, though as a percentage, not that many. But I did see a lot of great stuff. And so what I've done in this video is I've picked out 10 of the games that I thought you might be interested in hearing about, 10 of the experiences that I thought would be worth sharing with you. So let's get to it. I'm a big fan of the tile placement game Glenmore. And no, not just because it's Scottish. In Glenmore, you are building up your little corner of Scotland by taking tiles from a board. And these tiles are set in a circular pattern. Now you can take any tile that's on the board, you just have to move your player piece around the board to the tile you want. No problem. Except turn order is dictated by whose marker is furthest back on the board. That means if you jump very far ahead, for a lucrative tile for instance, you might be giving multiple turns and tiles to your opponents. Now this is a tremendously interesting mechanism on its own, leading to a lot of very tight gameplay where you're often desperately trying to balance the potential gains from a tile against what options you'll be giving to your opponents. When you throw in the twists Glenmore adds to the formula, by activating tiles surrounding the one you've just built, or clansman meeples which you acquire and move around your land dictating where you can build, the interesting scoring mechanism, the dynamic market, it all leads to an excellent tile placing Eurogame that's remained in my collection for many years. But not for much longer. This year at Spiel, I was able to demo Matthias Kramer's upcoming sequel Glenmore 2, and I was really impressed. There were one or two flaws in the original game, and in patching these, the designers managed to improve the strategic options of the game tremendously. For instance, there are now tiles such as famous people who, when taken, are not built into your area, but rather give you additional personal scoring objectives, or an instant one-time bonus such as money or resources. Collecting these people is also a new scoring condition, and helps to keep the size of your kingdom small, which was always supposed to be something that was rewarding in Glenmore, but was simply far too difficult to achieve in the original game. It is now a very valid strategy to try to build a very tight, efficient kingdom, and that's helped by the introduction of overbuilding tiles, which you can build over older tiles, essentially upgrading those older tiles. In short, there are simply more things to do, more ways to play, and a larger number of strategies to pursue. But better than all that, the distilleries are now named after actual distilleries. Fan Dabidozi. I will eagerly be awaiting the final version, which Matthias told me may be going to Kickstarter when it's ready. Uwe Rosenberg's Patchwork is one of my favourite two-player games. It surprises me that it is. On first blush, there's just not a huge amount going on, and it's rather abstract, which is a genre I tend not to like that much. But in play, Patchwork is one of the tightest and most satisfying head-to-head Eurogames I've ever had the pleasure to play. You can imagine my excitement last year when his new polynomial-based game Cottage Garden was released, and my disappointment when I discovered all that tightness had disappeared. You didn't really care what your opponents were doing because you couldn't do much about it. The satisfaction of filling a board was even diminished because you have multiple of them and they're disposable. You want to complete a board so you can throw it away, not sit back and admire it. The scoring system also seemed like it belonged to a different game. It worked, but it was a bit obfuscated. I did like the theme, and overall it wasn't a bad game by any stretch, but it wasn't in Patchwork's league, not by a long shot. So I had tempered expectations when I approached his new polynomial-based game Indian Summer. This time, it's a race game, so you're racing to be the first to fill your board. You have a personal supply of pieces which you can place, and a communal supply which you can occasionally use to refill your personal supply. Now, I have to say, seeing the evolution of this style of game has been fascinating, and it's so clear where Uwe has been able to take the strongest points from Cottage Garden and apply it to a much more interesting design. Indian Summer features a sort of puzzle within the puzzle. You see, each polynomial has a single hole cut into it, and your forest floor has things like mushrooms growing. So if you let the mushroom grow through a hole, then when you complete the section of forest floor where it's growing, you can harvest it. And these different objects, they basically give you all sorts of different special one-time use powers, and they can be extremely powerful, like giving you 2 turns in a row, for instance. Not only that, but if you can create specific shapes using the holes, you get a bonus tile that will cover up the holes, and any objects that had previously been harvested from them will be harvested again. So you can focus on just filling the board as fast as possible, or perhaps going for more of the bonuses. It is a wonderful game, surprisingly tense compared to the theme, and I'm loving it so far. And although it's still not a patch on Patchwork, it very much deserves its place in that line of games. Agra, oh my goodness, Agra is coming to us from Quinid Games, and let me tell you, those fine folks over there have the keenest of eyes for sharp Euro designs. Any release from Quinid is worth paying attention to, but Agra, oh, beautiful art from the unrivaled Michael Menzel. Set in India, the next game to come from La Granja designer Michael Keller. I was interested, but totally unprepared for the extreme depth Agra has to offer. I found this game utterly fascinating. Sadly, it is so grand in scope that it's very difficult to summarize or talk about in brief here. But a large part of the game is essentially worker placement. You'll be generating goods with a fascinating mechanism whereby the number of goods you create is determined by the position of tiny little mini workers on your player board. The more spaces between them and the resource you're creating on your player board, the more of that resource you'll get. You can move these workers, but moving them further from one resource means moving them closer to another. And these resources are all pretty basic stuff, wood, clay, and so on. But you can upgrade these resources through different paths. So the wood could become paper or lumber, and if the latter, then that lumber could then be further refined into furniture, for instance. The trouble is, once you've placed a worker, you've no way of recalling them. So it's easy to run out, but then you're really at the mercy of your opponents. They can take an action spot your worker's sitting on, and in doing so, they'll return your worker to you, and you'll receive a favor token. Those tokens can be used for all sorts of actions and bonuses later, and you can even save them up for mega turns if you want to. Alternatively, you can always have your workers meditate, lying them down on the board wherever they are, letting them pray to generate meditation points. And you can use those meditation points for different kinds of bonus actions, depending on how good you are at meditating. The drawback there is that if a meditating worker is returned to you, you don't get any favor at all. But all of that is just a sliver, a tiniest little slice of what's going on in Agra. There just isn't time to talk about the subtleties of the decisions you must make with regards to what you actually do with your goods. Do you build new buildings, deliver to notable people, or to Akbar himself? If I didn't mention, all of this activity is for the benefit of Akbar the Great's birthday party. Seriously, I know I haven't done a great job of really explaining what it's like to play this game or everything that you can do in the game. It's just not possible in such a short amount of time. But if you are someone that likes heavy Euro games that reward repeated plays, I just can't see Agra disappointing you. It seems like you'll discover more about this game every time you play it, and you will be able to play it in a wildly different fashion every time. In the one game I had of it, for instance, I made it so that when I produced wood, I made a ridiculous, insane amount of it. Of course, I couldn't create anything else, but then I used the merchant to manipulate the markets, increasing the price of my wood and purchasing more expensive goods. There's just so much to explore. And on top of that, it just has this stunning table presence with the sloped platforms showing your favor in the guilds of Agra. I just can't wait to play it again. Everyone's darling Concordia got a sibling this year. Transatlantic is a title Matt Gertz has been working on for a number of years now, and mechanically it borrows heavily from his massively popular Concordia, a game that at its heart is all about hand management, knowing when to play and pick up cards. It's a joy and a pleasure every time I get the chance to play it. Transatlantic casts you as an owner of a steamship company at the dawn of the Steam Age. Once again, running this empire is done through playing cards from your hand and picking them up again. You purchase new ships, decide which areas of the world to send them to, ensure they have coal to run, build distribution centres around the world, and so on. Overall, it was very interesting. The trouble was, the most interesting thing about it was the hand management mechanism, the one that's almost identical to that in Concordia. Only the shipping routes and distribution centres weren't nearly as interactive or interesting as what's going on in Concordia. There's also a mite more fiddliness and a rule or two that really felt inelegant and tacked on for thematic reasons at the expense of gameplay, which can be forgivable if the thematic reasons are fun or exciting, but manufacture dates of steamships I find to be neither. The geography of Concordia is also sadly missing. Now, this was by no means a bad game. In fact, it was very good, and I know there are many people who will love this game. And there's no sense of it being a reskin or retheme. It definitely adds some new elements to the formula. And if someone asked me to play, I'd certainly happily sit down and I'd play. But I'd never ask to play it. Why wouldn't I just play Concordia? Altiplano, the follow-up game from Rainer Stockhausen, was eagerly anticipated by many due to the massive popularity of his previous bag-building game Orléans, a game I also very much enjoy, and so I was glad to be able to give this a try this year. As in Orléans, this game centres around building up the contents of your personal draw bag with tokens that are related to different goods and actions. It was clearly an evolution on the earlier design. You now have a sort of discard area, so you know for sure you'll be picking everything out of your bag. It also comes with an oversized cardboard llama, which Orléans always lacked even with expansions. Despite all that, I still prefer Orléans. Though I feel pretty safe saying that if you did like Orléans, you will definitely enjoy Altiplano. They do feel different enough that I think you could own both if you like the bag building mechanism, but personally I'd pick up Orléans first. I'll be honest with you, I'm a sucker for dexterity games, so Meatball Circus was always likely to please me. However, I was surprised just how much I enjoyed this one. It's essentially a standard stacking game, with each player individually building towers and configurations out of circus performers and props. A couple of delightful twists really make Meatball Circus stand out from the crowd though. Firstly, you score points depending on if you can make certain configurations that change from game to game, but you won't necessarily have all the pieces you need to complete them. Each round allows you to draft tiles which let you get additional performers and props into your circus. Now that's fun itself, but it also means each round your act grows bigger, more impressive and more difficult to build. Throw in the guest stars, which are unique pieces, each with their own unique special rules, and the final round, which has you as a player putting on your show for the rest of the players to watch, gaining extra points for fulfilling your specific showmanship conditions, and you really have a very unique, silly, but tremendously fun dexterity game, which I foresee myself hanging on to for quite some time. Inca and Marcus Brand, masters of the medium weight Euro. Their names alone would have had me interested in this new release, but when I saw the theme and the gorgeous art and the production, I fell in love. And although I've only played it a few times, Rajas of the Ganges is shaping up to possibly be my favourite of all their Euro game designs. And I love Village in my village. Rajas has so much going on, and most of it is centred around your personal dice pool. You'll have to manage this dice pool, converting some dice into different colours and making sure you've got enough of the right colours to be able to do what it is you want to do. And in this game, that is all sorts of different things, like building out your gardens through a tile laying system, which lets you score based on what buildings are on the tiles. And in the game, you essentially can dictate how much each of those buildings is going to be worth to you personally. You can get bonuses if you connect the roads to bonus spots on your board, or you can work on building a strong market economy to generate lots of revenue. And revenue is particularly important in Rajas of the Ganges because, and I love this system, you essentially have two tracks that run along the outside of the board. One is your standard victory points and the other is your wealth. Now the wealth track obviously can go up and down as you gain and gain and use money. But to win, you need to make the two meet somewhere, anywhere on the tracks. So what that means is that you can essentially focus almost entirely on points or wealth, or have a bit of a mix of both. Love this game. Even if you're in last place, there's a strong sense of satisfaction when you pull off a big move and you build your empire. Great stuff. Can't wait to play it more. And this year, the duo announced that they're working on a legacy style game. Color me interested. I'm a big fan of many of Rudiger Dorn's designs: Karuba, Asante, Las Vegas, Goa, the fantastic Istanbul, the sadly overlooked Steam time. So although the theme didn't interest me massively, I was keen to try his latest release. And it is with heavy heart that I have to report that I was incredibly disappointed. Montana is a very simple game. You're attempting to build camps out onto a hex grid by paying the resources depicted on those hexes. You gain those resources by worker placement on another board, and you get those workers by spinning a spinner, which tells you what kind of workers you get. Farmers get you pumpkins, blah blah blah. That's it. There's just 3 actions you can choose from on your turn: spin the spinner, build, or place your workers, as many as you like. Nice and clean. The major issue I had with the game, however, was that there appeared to be a huge first player advantage. In the first round, provided they have the right workers, the first player can absolutely dominate the worker placement spots, taking the spots with best conversion and blocking everyone else out. And since they're likely going to be the first player to also build, they can also pick their choice of build spots and benefit from the bonuses that are available out there. It was incredibly pronounced in the single game of it I played, enough so that the first player won in just a couple of rounds, and I, as second player, would have won on my next turn, and I assume the third player would have been next in line. Now, I was so incredulous about this experience that I actually had to go and read the rules afterwards to make sure that we'd been taught it correctly. I was also quite displeased with a particular mechanism which essentially forces you to go to the city, which is an action that occurs when you're placing workers. This involves all players then deciding whether or not they want to bid on tracks to gain bonuses. But this happens essentially every time that someone chooses the place worker action, and I found it rather tedious. Now, this is not a review, far from it. I played it once, but I thought you might be interested to hear my experience, and so there it is. It wasn't good. Cali Mala. Wow. Well, I went into this being mildly interested by what looked to be a pretty neat action selection mechanism. In Cali Mala, you have action discs which you place between 2 tiles on a grid, and that grid is completely random for each game, by the way. You then get to take the action of those tiles, collect goods, ship goods, make donations to churches, what have you. Here's the thing. Your action disc stays in that spot, and when someone else plays their disc on that same spot, yours will activate again. If you happen to have 2 discs there, then you'll get to take those actions twice. It's fascinating, trying to place yourself where you will benefit from other players' activations or activating other players' discs at the worst possible time. On top of that, the scoring system is wild. Like the grid, scoring tiles are set out randomly for each game. So in one game, the first thing that we'll score might be how many goods have been shipped to London. Then who's donated the most to a particular church, then something else. These scoring rounds are triggered when a stack of action discs reaches 4, the bottom one is removed, and that causes the next scoring tile to activate. So sometimes you're desperate for that to happen because you'll score well. Other times you're desperately hoping it won't, so you can take that one action you need to ship more goods and snag first place for that scoring tile. The thing is, there are so many scoring tiles, so many scoring conditions, that you won't be able to do well in all of them. So you have to decide what you'll focus on. And how you approach the scoring conditions that will occur at the end of the game will differ compared to how you approach those that are just about to happen. You can be opportunistic and throw a good or 2 at a scoring condition where there isn't a lot of competition. There is a lot going on, lots to think about. It definitely feels extremely fresh as a design. It seems to have a lot of replayability due to the random setups, and I just can't wait to play more of this. It really deserves to have a wide distribution and be seen by a lot of people. A Tale of Pirates. I do not understand why this game isn't getting more buzz. Seriously, look. Look! A 3D pirate ship, how cool is that? A Tale of Pirates is a real-time cooperative campaign game with legacy-like hidden components and rules that change as you play the game. There are 10 chapters, each one involves opening a hidden package like this, and that contains extra components and new rules. An app that goes along with the game will tell you what the victory conditions are for a chapter and explains what any new components that you've unlocked do and how they work and all of the new rules. You click go and away you go on the next adventure. Each chapter essentially gives you a set amount of time in which you'll be performing actions aboard the ship together by placing your personal hourglass into slots in the ship, like the crow's nest, cannon ports, and when your sand runs out, you can take that action. Scanning the horizon to turn face down cards face up, firing cannons at enemy ships, repairing your ship, boarding enemy ships, and who knows what else, because I'm only about halfway through at this point. This is so much fun. It's challenging but not brutal. It definitely requires a good amount of communication and teamwork, and the joy of unlocking the next package of bits can't be understated. The app has different difficulty levels and rates your performance, so if you wanted to, you could try to get the highest rating on all the chapters. If you like real-time co-ops, honestly, you absolutely must look into this. It's fantastic and I can't get enough of it. I do wonder, once I've gone through the full 10 chapters, how much replayability it will have, but for now it's been well worth the money. It's been a fantastic, unique experience, loving it so far. Why is no one talking about this? It's brilliant. 3D pirate ship! And that's it, gang. Some of the experiences I had at this year's Essen Spiel. I really do hope that you found that useful or interesting, and let me know if this is the kind of content that you find entertaining or fun. You can contact me in hundreds of different ways. Let me know if this is the kind of content that you'd like me to continue making, or if you'd like me to focus on doing things like reviews. Speaking of which, I will be coming out with one very soon on something that I think you'll find quite interesting. If you would like to be notified when that comes out, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and as always, you can help support me creating more of these videos by helping me out on Patreon. But until the next time, bye-bye.